Hi, it's your buddy, Addy, the Healing Wizard, and I'm here to talk to you about childhood trauma. Now, what is childhood trauma? Well, essentially, it is the experience of an event or a series of events that are emotionally painful and stressful, and that have long lasting effects physically, mentally, or both. Now, a child can have overwhelming negative experiences as a result of multiple scenarios. It could be that they are in a war torn area, or they experience a natural disaster, or it could be that they experience an accident. These are just some of the examples. Now, childhood trauma can happen if a child experiences something which is like abuse or violence, which is something that happened to them. Or on the other side, they could experience trauma for something that they did not experience, like neglect, physical or emotional. Now, in my case, I had to experience both. I had to deal with my father's anger and deal with all the negativity and toxicity in the environment at home. And I also had to experience emotional neglect. Now, from the parents' perspective, there could be multiple reasons why this happens. It could be because the parents were ill, they were prone to substance abuse, maybe the family separated or there was a divorce, but there can be many reasons. And as a result of all of this, children are adversely affected. Now, research tells us that from the time a child is born to age 6, that's the critical time where the child needs the most nourishment and support from parents and from the family because it directly affects brain development. And from what I was reading, in the United States, 50% of children experience some kind of negative or adverse event in the home that affects them either just in childhood or later in life as well. So, what are the effects of childhood trauma on children? Well, there are many. On the physical front, it can leave children feeling like they don't want to eat or they're undernourished. It could lead to obesity. It could lead to other biomarkers being off. And on the emotional side, it could mean that children have behavioral problems, that they feel depressed or angry, they get into trouble in school. These are on the mental or the emotional side. And these are some of the things that happened to me. I was very depressed. I was performing badly in my studies in school. And just physically, I just never felt I had the energy to go out and play as much as I wanted to or do things that I wanted to do. Now, in addition to all of this, what research also tells us is that these childhood traumatic experiences affect the brain because the brain is developing in children and the receptors and the connections that are being formed don't form as well as they should. And this can lead to cognitive problems, problems with learning, problems with socializing later on in life. And it's just not an all round good scenario. And in addition to this, I was also reading into a new field of study called epigenetics, which says that our genes aren't fixed from the time we are born. They keep developing and forming as we grow older, and those can be affected by adverse childhood traumatic experiences as well. Now, given all of this, I wanted to share a couple of examples of what it feels like to be in a traumatic experience. Now, one of them is you can imagine you're sitting in a car and it's not in drive or in reverse, so it's not moving, but you're revving the engine. And that's what it feels like to an individual who's facing trauma, is that the brain is at a heightened level of arousal and awareness. And working from that state, it needs to find some rest at some time. So just like you can't rev your car the whole time, an individual, when they're faced with trauma, has their minds revving all the time, so to speak. So it's just a tough scenario for them. And over time, this leaves the brain changed and, having all kinds of adverse effects being experienced. Now, the other example is drawn from a term psychologists like to use, which is the fight, flight, or freeze response. Now, let me explain this with an example. So, you are walking in the woods and you suddenly encounter a lion. What do? You either fight it, you either flee from the scene, or if you can't do any of those two, you would freeze, being petrified at seeing the lion. Now, A similar scenario happens to children when they're at home. They can't fight their parents. They can't flee from their home. So, what alternative do they have? They just freeze. And this causes depression and all kinds of stress at home. And that's the kind of scenario that they have to face. And if it's something that needs to be faced over an extended period of time, just like I had to face, it can leave you changed and a different person altogether. Now, all the effects of childhood trauma into adulthood lead to further physical and emotional problems. Um, if those traumatic events and those emotions aren't healed in adulthood, they can lead to obesity, diabetes, chronic pain, and other problems in adult life. And on the mental side, it can lead to depression, anxiety, PTSD, panic attacks, and a whole host of other problems. Socially, this can mean that people just see the black and white in situations. They just see others as good or bad, and they can't see the middle region. Cognitively, they can have lower self esteem, low confidence, and not able to perform their work or perform well in life. As parents, they may feel frustrated at the prospect of raising children because they don't have the ability to emotionally regulate themselves. They may have relationship issues, and their attachment styles may suffer. So they may have an ambivalent or an avoidant attachment style. An ambivalent style is one where a person is very needy, clingy, possibly codependent. An avoidant style is when they're hostile or angry a lot of the times at their partner for just the way they are, and for no fault of their partner. So um, all the effects of childhood trauma essentially need to be healed for anybody to live a healthy adult life. Now, from my experience, I wish that I had tools available to me to heal in childhood itself. And this is not to say that in adult life I cannot be healed. It's just that, or I'm not healing, but it just takes longer and more effort. But there's a lot of determination that I have to be the best version of myself. And that's one of my motivations to share these videos with you. So I was reading into more research into this, and one of the interesting articles that I came across was about the effects on children of parents who themselves have experienced childhood trauma. And the findings suggest that children of such parents are twice as likely to be prone to hyperactivity and 4 times more likely to have emotional disturbances and emotional problems, which is very, very revealing. Now, drawing from my experience of reading into spirituality and karma, and I was thinking deeper about this, and I kind of saw a pattern, and I'm sure many of you may have noticed this, or this may just come to you as well, that if one person experiences childhood trauma and they aren't healed and they become a parent, it's likely that those effects would come onto their children, and they will have childhood trauma, and when they grow up and they become their parents, they become parents themselves, those effects would come on their children, and it's just a chain, a string that flows, and it just possibly never ends. So again, drawing from my experience of reading into karma, this may be something that's just flowing in the family, collective karma, and it's something that really needs to be healed emotionally but spiritually as well, to be able to lead a healthy life. And it's something that I have committed myself to. So what are the solutions, interventions that possibly can happen? So from the research I was reading, it states that it's better to have interventions early on in childhood so that children can be healed. And in childhood, kids can heal faster, they are more resilient, so it can be more beneficial. In fact, one of the studies said that if there is broader familial support and community support, kids perform better academically at school, even though they've experienced childhood trauma. And the other research is drawn a lot on therapy options for parents, parenting skills that young parents can be taught so that they can heal themselves, individual therapy for parents. And I would add to this is that, just from my own experience, is that some amount of spirituality is good. In fact, for me, it's been a lifesaver. So if they can commit themselves to this, it'll be great not only for them but for their kids and for the broader family as well. And I know, and I will be speaking more about this in detail in another video, but cultural context plays a lot into how the family setup works and functions as well. So in India, there is a lot of close support from extended family and even friends, and that can help out in such a situation if a child is experiencing trauma. But on the flip side, there is a lot of stigma around what's happening in the family. A lot of times things happening within the family are not revealed or shared with others outside. So that's the challenge. And I get in other societies in other countries, things may be structured differently, such as, for instance, here in the US. So, other programs from the outside, other community programs, municipality and local programs can help. And if there's more education spread on this, I'm sure parents and broader society will have more tools at their disposal to be able to better, um, you know, heal themselves, and kids don't have to suffer so much. So having said that, if you like the content, or if you don't like something I spoke about, or anything else that comes to your mind, please comment below. I have included links to the articles and everything I read in the run-up to doing this video in the description box. So please look at those, share it with others if you want. Please share this video also with others who you think can benefit from the message. If this can stoke conversation, nothing like it. And if this can help somebody who has suffered or is suffering from childhood trauma, then that'll be the best. Then they can start taking steps to help heal themselves. So I appreciate you watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.